Thank you very, very much. I can't even begin to tell you what an honor it is to be here. What he said is true. I just never spoke about it, and like most combat veterans, especially back in that era, nobody wanted to hear about it anyway, so we didn't talk about it. Brief background, I grew up in Santa Barbara and was drafted a year and a half out of high school. Ended up in artillery, 105 howitzers, and we trained at Fort Lewis, Washington for a year. After that year, we got aboard the USS General Walker in our trip to Vietnam. It was a ship that was built in 1939, built to carry 3,400 troops back when the U.S. was gearing up for the possibility of getting into World War II. We had 5,700 on it, and so it wasn't real pleasant. And 23 days later, we landed in Vietnam. We spent the first 3 months in the Mekong Delta, which is the southern part of the country. And after that, they sent us up a little bit further north into an area called the Iron Triangle that went all the way into, or to the border there of Cambodia. Because 105 howitzers, which is what I was, I guess I should say that, are considered air mobile, we were lifted by Hueys. It takes 3 Hueys to move a gun, 1 to move the gun, 1 to move the ammunition, and 1 to move the crew. So we were constantly on the move and never spent more than about 3, maybe 4 days at the most in one location. We got, as he said before, we did get in several large skirmishes and kind of got used to the mortars and the small arms fire. But today I want to talk about March 21, 1967, the Battle of Sui Tree. It was the largest one-day battle in the Vietnam War. I spent a lot of time on the computer with looking up government records, and I wanted to make sure that everything I said today was factual and was true. We were flown in by Huey to a clearing called Fire Base Gold, Operation Junction City. We would learn later that we were landed right in the middle of 2,500 North Vietnamese regulars. It was the 272nd NVA Regiment. They were equipped with AK-47s, RPGs, 57 and 75 caliber recoilless rifles. We knew this was going to be different because, for unknown reasons, they brought all 3 of our batteries into the same location. So instead of normally, which we would have 6 guns, we had 18 guns. As we came in, 3 helicopters landed on command detonated mines, killing all 7 crewmen and 10 infantry. We spent all day digging in and had a pretty fairly uneventful night. Company B's 22nd Infantry was with us and was guarding our perimeter. This was also unusual. We usually guard our own perimeter. Around 4:30, Company B reported movement, but it stopped and it was quiet until about 6:30. When they came at us under heavy attack, and it started taking a lot of mortar rounds, and they were a lot more accurate than we were used to. Within minutes, the entire perimeter became under attack by waves of communist troops. In less than 10 minutes, the perimeter had been overrun. Most of Company B was killed. An estimated 650 mortars fell as the communists advanced. By 7 o'clock, some of our own 105 rounds were hit, and they were going off all around us. You could hear the explosions, you could hear the small arms fire. Seemed like it was everywhere. At 7:15 in that morning, a Cessna spotter plane arrived to direct artillery. It was shot down, and the pilot and the observer were both killed. At around 7:30, the VC had overrun a quad 50 and were turning it around to fire on us. We turned one of our guns and took it out with a round from the 105. At 7:45, we were ordered to direct fire with a beehive round, which is the very first time that it had ever been used in combat. A beehive round is equivalent of a shotgun shell, only instead of round pellets it has dart-like projectiles in it. And if I remember correctly, this one's from memory, I think it was like 4,500, 5,000 projectiles in each round. And direct fire means you're lowering the tube down and looking direct, instead of looking at your quadrant or anything like that, you're just looking directly through the tube and lining it up that way. At 7:55, 2 more Cessnas arrived to help direct fire. 2 F-4 Phantoms arrived and dropped napalm at the edge of the perimeter. Also, an AG-47 Dragon ship showed up with Gatling guns, catching a lot of the Viet Cong out in the open as they were advancing. At 8:40, the enemy had reached the secondary defense line and the guns of the artillery. At that time, bombs were landing less than 50 meters from us, from our own supporting 105s and 155s. After running out of beehive rounds, we used high explosive rounds with timed fuses. By 8:50, the VC had worked their way up to 15 meters from our position. They were right in front of us. By this time, there was only 5 105s still in operation. By 9 o'clock, there were over 50 fighter planes either on the scene or en route. At 9:12, a mechanized infantry unit broke through the tree line with their 50 caliber guns blazing. At 9:28, the perimeter had been reestablished. At 10:45, the medical evacuations had begun. Artillery strikes continued for almost another 4 hours as the VC withdrew. When it was all over, 647 647 Viet Cong were dead, and an estimated 300 to 400 were carried off and died later. 51 Americans were killed and 109 wounded. It was established that if the mechanized unit had not arrived when they had, positions would have been ran over in less than 15 minutes. When all the dust settled, the UPI and API reporters flown in and were filming this, and of course wanted to film General Westmoreland as he landed. We were led that day by Colonel John Vassy Jr., who went on to become General John Vassy and was appointed Chairman Joint Chief of Staffs under President Ronald Reagan. Last June 2015, in Fort Carson, Colorado, they held a reunion for the survivors of that battle. General Vassy was the guest speaker. He's now 94. In his talk, he said that he had a chance years later to meet with his counterpart that day, and he told General Vassy that it had not gone the way they had wanted it to. His orders were to destroy the 77th Artillery and take no prisoners. Our unit that day was awarded the Presidential Citation. It is the highest honor that can be received by a unit, and it's comparable to a collective Medal of Honor. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I had a little trouble getting through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madsen.